Well, hello again and welcome back to the leafy surrounds of Gosforth. Yeah, we've been slumming it this summer, haven't we? Central Park, Grand Central Station, Times Square, but yeah, here we are, back on the streets of Tyneside. We don't have noise interference from that gorilla in Times Square this time, but someone has turned on the wind machine that's up to the max, so I do apologise in advance for any issues with sound quality. Now, a little bit later with the video today, that's because we were up the training ground this week, actually lucky enough to spend some time with Darren Eales, got a tour of the new look facilities, and Dan Ashworth called in as well for a chat with us. Now that stuff was embargoed until later this afternoon on Friday, which is why I'm bringing the delayed video, because I want to bring you a little bit of analysis and chat from that. But yeah, on the training ground, the first thing I did pick up was that the treatment room was empty and the manager's office was full and still busy, and this was at 6 p.m. Now, under the previous boss, that might have been completely different. So yeah, that leads into the fact that Fabian Schär looks like he's going to be fit for tomorrow's game with Aston Villa, which in terms of injury news was the big takeaway from this morning's press conference with Eddie. I'm going to split this video up. We're going to look back at Eddie Howe's media briefing this morning up at the training ground. Lots to unpick from that. I'll then bring you a little bit, like I said, about Eales and Ashworth, and then we'll move on to Aston Villa tomorrow and my thoughts and what the starting 11 is going to be. But yeah, first of all, going back to this morning with Eddie, in less good news for Newcastle, Joe Willock is going to be out for another 4 weeks with a hamstring injury. Now, when we were in America, he was there, he was training in front of us in Atlanta, he looked very good. Then within a couple of days, the tone changed on Joe. He felt his hamstring. He hasn't pulled it again. It's not a reoccurrence. There's just something which isn't right there, and it's going to keep him out for another 3 to 4 weeks at least. Now, on the flip side of that, all of a sudden midfield looks as if it's a position where Eddie Howe does have lots of options. The emergence of Louis Miley, the brilliant form of Elliot Anderson, Sandro Tonali coming in. Is he going to play? I'll tell you at the end of the video. Joe Linton back, Bruno, Sean Longstaff coming back to fitness. So the loss of Willock isn't as keenly felt as it once would have been, but nonetheless it is a blow, because he was a player who was just getting better and better week on week, wasn't he? And he was another one of those who you could see the influence of Eddie Howe in improving his game. Because let's be honest, after that initial impact in the loan spell, he'd gone off the boil a little bit with Steve Bruce. So yeah, what else came out of Eddie's press conference? Well, the story I've written, which I'll put on screen now, and you can link it in the description below to read at the Daily Mail, is that Eddie Howe said he needs more. He's told the hierarchy they are still one player light, and that player would be, for us, it's a defender, whether it's a left back or a right-sided centre back. All the information coming back is that it's the latter. But Eddie did say that he's been told by the hierarchy that they are going to have to be, quote, creative in bringing in that player because of the budgetary restrictions as a result of FFP limitations. Now, I asked Eddie, what does creative mean? He said, well, it means you can't go and, quote, slap money down on a table and buy a player outright. So I then, said to him, does that mean loans, obligations to buy, options to buy, structured payments? He said, well, yeah, all of that fall into it, but those deals are very difficult to do because clubs want the money up front. So yeah, there are lots of names on the table in terms of that right-sided centre half who are listed in the article. To talk of a few, I was at the game last weekend when Nice were playing at St James's Park, of course, in the Cellar Cup, and all of the Newcastle backroom team and the scouting team were there en masse, watching Thuram, the midfielder. I've already spoken about this. I don't think they're too impressed with him, but also the centre back Jean-Claire Todibo as well, who is someone they like. They have watched him for a while now. Two issues. One, I'm told, is perhaps concerns over mentality, but also the fee as well. The fee comes back with everybody. All of these players who I've linked in the article, you've got Silva at Benfica, you've got the two at Leverkusen, Tapsoba in Cusinao, Joachim Andersen at Crystal Palace, Pershers playing over in Torino, Kotchap down at Southampton, another one who's been mentioned to me, who Ashworth is quite keen on. All of these players, they're all pretty much the 30-40 million pound ballpark. Now, it might be which one of those emerges as the most viable is the one that can get with a deal to suit. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. They are pushing, they are trying. Eddie and Dan were both at the training ground there the other night, locked in talks. I'm talking like a journalist. Just having a chat probably, but locked in talks for dramatic effect over transfers. Eddie did say nothing's close. That is our information also, but they are pushing. And do they need another right-sided centre back? Well, for me they do, I think, and they need a starter as well. One concern I would have to a degree is that of the 3 players they've brought in, and this is hard to do when you're a Champions League club and you've got very good players in every position now, have they definitely massively improved weak areas, and not weak areas in terms of the starting 11 that could have been improved upon? I would say no, just in that Harvey Barnes comes in. I think he's a brilliant signing, as I said, during my period banned by the previous manager. I spent a lot of time down at Leicester. I would tell anyone who would listen, Newcastle should go out and sign Harvey Barnes. I think over time he will be one who improves that starting 11, but when you've got Anthony Gordon in the shape and the form he is in, you get the point I'm making. Sandro Tonali as well, he's probably going to take time. Doesn't, for me, straight away improve the starting 11. I think we'll probably see that reflected in the team sheet tomorrow. And Tino Livramento as well. Eddie spoke about him this morning. It's accepted that Tino Livramento is coming in as backup to Kieran Trippier. The point I'm making is, if they'd gone out and bought a left back and a right side centre half, I thought those were 2 positions where they could have made an immediate gain on the quality of the starting 11, and I think they need more recovery pace in the back line, an athletic right-sided centre half as an alternative to Fabian Schär and Jamal Lascelles. That's the area in which they're looking, but it sounds like it could be hard to do. What else was there from Eddie this morning? Well, he was pushed on the notion of losing Mad Dog, his loyal dog, Jason Tindall, by his side in the technical area. Now, I have to tell you, I sat in on a Premier League briefing with Howard Webb earlier in the week, the PGMOL, and we went through. It was very good. Went through all of the new rules and the new changes this season, and the subject of dark arts and cutting down on timekeeping. Everything was explored. And at times it felt like watching the Amazon Prime documentary We Are Newcastle United. So many times were clips cut up of Newcastle's use of so-called dark arts. But on Tindall, Eddie just said, it is a blow. He went as far as to say, and he hinted that, has this rule change only been brought in where you're allowed 1 member of coaching staff in the technical zone? Has it been brought in just to impact on the dynamic and the effect that he and Tindall have? He didn't use those words explicitly, but we got the meaning. I think they'll find a way around it, and as much as there are so many different things you can look forward to going into the new season, certainly monitoring the movement of Jason Tindall tomorrow will be just as exciting as anything else. So let's see what unfolds there. Now, the time we spent at the training ground, first of all, I've spent a lot of time around that training ground over the years. What they've done is a massive improvement. The dining area, the hydro pool, the changing room especially, I thought was a big improvement. Could it still be better? Do they still need to move to another site? Yes, I think they do. I still don't think it's got really that wow factor, but they've made the best of what they've got with the relatively modest spend of about £10 million. Now, what did we talk to Darren Eales about? Well, a lot. When we've come to transcribe it, there was 5,500 words, and I haven't got time to go through all of that. But what I can do is pick out the bit which I've used as a story for tonight. And we were sat there with Darren and Dan. I know this comes back to what a lot of people are interested in, and been a very controversial topic this summer: budget. And if you remember, goodness, I'm reminded of it every day by you guys on social media. I wrote in May that there was a starting budget of £75 million, there or thereabouts, if Newcastle didn't sell players. Now, a few weeks later up at Rangers, Eddie Howe came out and spoke to us pretty candidly and said Newcastle were, quote, stuck with regards to the budget. They'd spent £52 million on Sandro Tonali, and they couldn't bring in the players they then wanted to because it would have cost more than what they had left. They needed to sell a player. Alan Saint-Maximin went out, and the point I make is we spoke to Dan Ashworth about that, and now this is newsy in that the only interest they had, and Ashworth admitted this, the only offer they had, was from a Saudi Arabian club, Al Ahly, who are owned by PIF. So in effect, and it's our job as journalists to sort of piece these things together, another club with the same owners has unlocked their budget this summer. The £25 million, around about that figure they got for St Max, has enabled them to then go out and bring in Harvey Barnes and Tino Livramento. Now then the question was put to Darren Eales, how does £25 million and then enable you to go and spend, what was it, in excess of 50 on the, in excess of 60 on those two players. He said the way it works is, if you get the money for St Max, you get all of it up front. If you're buying a player, you're able to amortise that over the length of the contract. And I think I've tried to explain this before, haven't I? That if you sell a player for £30 million, it is worth initially a lot more than the £38 million that is going out, if you see what I mean. So yeah, it was good to get that explanation on the record. Again, a link in the description below, taking you through the Mail story, which lays all that out with Darren Eales and Dan Ashworth. What else did they talk about? Well, yeah, it was just the ambition is there, but you also sense with that the frustration that they are, because of FFP, they are going to have to do things by the book, and they're never going to, that's not me suggesting that they're ever going to bend the rules or break the rules, but there are parameters they're going to have to work within, and Eales has the ambition of doubling the club's revenues, every 2 years, which is a challenge, but if they want to compete with Manchester City, and they want to do it quickly, that was the one thing I left there thinking. These guys are in a hurry. The Saudi ownership, as much as they've spoken about doing things gradually in its evolution, not revolution, to coin Eddie's phrase, they also want to get there pretty quickly, and the journey has been accelerated by the brilliant job Eddie Howe has done in taking them into the Champions League, but they've now got to catch up off the pitch too. Now, finally, Aston Villa, there's a game tomorrow, isn't there? And the starting 11, which I've said on previous videos, no starting 11 has a bigger build-up than the 2 month we've got debating who Eddie's going to pick in the first game of the season. So, yeah, I said to Eddie this morning, now I was at the True Faith Live event in town last night. For those of you who were there, another brilliant night. It's a real reminder of just how excited and engaged you guys are. It was a really, really good night, always enjoyable. But I told Eddie this morning, what we'd done is, between myself and the panel, my fellow journalists and the guys who are on the floor, we'd picked his starting 11 for him, to which he said, well, yeah, please can you let me know, because I think he's still got one or two dilemmas. And that was another question I asked of him. I said, the one big debating point we had last night was almost Harvey Barnes or Anthony Gordon on the left-hand side, the front three. Eddie said, well, yeah, I've got more than one decision to make. I've got 5 or 6. So I don't think it's that many. I'll go through my team now, which I'll put in what I think it's going to be. And I'm just going to negotiate my way past a van here. And the family having what seems like an emotional goodbye to someone. So I don't know intrude on those guys. But yeah, we just crossed over the road here, and so I think the back 5, now we know Shaw is fit, or now we've been told Shaw is fit by Eddie. Yeah, he's probably out for 6 months, but back 5, easy. Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier, Fabian Shaw, Sven Botman and Dan Burn left back ahead of Matt Targett. Into midfield, Joe Linton on the left, 100%, Bruno in the middle. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Who plays on the right hand side of that midfield 3? I think it's one of 3. It is either Sandro Tonali, Sean Longstaff or Elliot Anderson. My pick is Elliot Anderson. I just do not think you can waste the momentum he's built during this summer. If not now, when? He's been head and shoulders this summer the Newcastle's best player. Eddie Howe revealed to us that he was number 1 in every pre-season fitness test they did. Jamal Lascelles then come out and backed that up and said, wow, the other players couldn't believe how far ahead he was. Why waste that? Put him in, give him a go, see where it takes him. Will Eddie do that? I think it's a toss-up between himself and Sean Longstaff. Eddie likes Sean, I like Sean, everyone likes Sean, but has he built that fitness over the past week? He played against Fiorentina on Villarreal on Sunday, back after a little bit of a hamstring complaint. Is that enough to get him in the team for tomorrow? I think Eddie would like to, but that's a big call. I think he probably will go with Longstaff, even though I would go with Anderson. Into the front 3, Almiron on the right, yes, 100%. Isak down the middle. Now, a little bit of debate about that in terms of will he go Isak or Wilson. I just think, bearing in mind, Isak has started with Almiron and Gordon in the front 3 in the games against Chelsea and Fiorentina. I think that is what he'll go with. And what a wonderful option to have from the bench, Callum Wilson. Onto the left, Gordon or Barnes. Now this is the big one. It was nailed on Gordon all through the summer. goes back to the point I made about Elliot Anderson, that momentum. Why waste that? Anthony's come back in terrific shape. We spoke to him out in America. I was quite taken with him. He's my pick this season for the surprise package. I think I said this in America when we had a chat in Atlanta. The one player who could emerge and under the radar to a degree, having had what was a fairly disappointing poor second half of the season after his arrival. Now, will he put Harvey Barnes in instead of him? Barnes has given him something to think about with the 2 goals against Villarreal, but I do think he will stick with Anthony Gordon, and I would too. I think that'll be the right call. Now, we've gone through the starting 11 now, and we haven't mentioned Sandro Tonali, the marquee summer signing of £52 million. Now, Eddie almost hinted this morning that players have to earn a place in his team. I think that's right. I think he'll adopt a similar approach as he did with the likes of Bruno and Sven Botman to a degree. And not only that's one side of it. Players have got to earn that. I also think, based on what I've seen so far, I wouldn't start Tonali anyway. And I've made this point up at Rangers. We saw in his first game, we saw what he can do, what he will bring. On reflection, that was against a very average Rangers team. You don't play sides from Scotland every week. And I know the coach and staff went over there, and everyone was raving about Tonali, as they travelled from Scotland over to America, in terms of that first touch. He just seemed 2 or 3 seconds ahead of everyone else. That is what he will bring. What we then saw in America against Premier League opposition, and tellingly Aston Villa, is what he still needs to bring, what he needs to work on. Now, he runs, he gets around, but he probably needs to run a little bit harder. In terms of his off-the-ball contribution, I think there's still more to come there. I think he can be better. It's a different level of intensity in this league on 2 fronts. One, in terms of the opposition, the intensity you're met with, but also you've got to get up the intensity of your own team as well. And for me, Tonali isn't there yet, and we saw that in the 2 games out in the States against Premier League opposition. He looked better against Fiorentina on Saturday, but again, Fiorentina, that's almost one of his own. So I don't think Tonali will play, and I think that's the right call. Now, what will happen in terms of the result? Now, I've said for a long time this game's got 1-1 written all over it. I think they're both fantastic teams. I think the 2 sides who are really threatening to disturb that previous established top order. I think they've both got tremendous managers, Unai Emery and Eddie Howe. Newcastle's owners know how to identify good bosses, don't they? Bearing in mind Emery was on the verge of being appointed. I still think the most likely outcome, if I'm being honest, is a draw. Huge blow for Villa this week, losing Emi Buendia, who was tremendous out in the States when we saw him. I'm going to go for a 1-1. But I think it'll be a fascinating clash. Like I say, 2 top sides. I'll be back with a video after the game from St James's Park tomorrow. I might even have a little stroll along to the pub again. That was pretty popular when I did it last week. So thanks again for watching, guys. Please hit like, please hit subscribe, read those mail links I've put in the description below, and I'll see you again in 24 hours. Okay, take care. Bye bye.